I love that the Philadelphia 76ers are looking at possibly doing this in an NBA draft that has a undisputed number one overall draft pick for, 2 years plus now with Cooper Flag. And now we know that he'll be going to the Dallas Mavericks at 1. Dylan Harper most likely going to the Spurs at 2, barring some trade, most likely in a package for Giannis. Outside of that, this NBA draft is pretty wide open. And with no surefire prospect there for the Philadelphia 76ers at number 3, you have a handful of guys that the 76ers have been rumored to and linked to, whether it's Trey Johnson, whether it's Ace Bailey, whether it's VJ Edgecombe. With no surefire guy there and a lot of debates, not just among the fan base, but seems like internally within the Sixers front office as well, they should be exploring the possibility of doing this, and they should keep all options open, to be quite honest. With the draft still about 2 weeks away now, the Philadelphia 76ers have been linked to potentially trading down in this NBA draft. They've also been linked potentially to selecting Ace Bailey at number 3. They've been the most heavily rumored team, and I think that's the way Daryl Morey likes it. And that's since we got this pick at number 3 overall, has been my favorite thing that the Philadelphia 76ers have had. Options. They are going to most likely have more options than any other team. And the NBA draft party really starts there at number 3 with the Philadelphia 76ers, I think. In a recent article by Keith Pompey, he touches on NBA teams are pondering what the Sixers will do in the upcoming draft, regardless of what Daryl Morey has stated publicly and what he said basically after the draft lottery was, we like, 3 guys, and we have the potential to get one of those guys there at number 3. We're most likely going to stick and pick. Some league executives believe trade-back talks could occur before the draft, and Brian Windhorst even said today, expect the offseason to start sooner rather than later, and a lot of trades happen and some chaos happen during this NBA draft, and the 76ers could be at the forefront of that. But one executive has said a couple teams behind the 76ers are in the draft, are doing heavy research on the possibility of moving up to number 3 overall. You can read his article there as always on the at the Philadelphia Inquirer. But it just goes back to the main topic of discussion where the Sixers have options. And I know a lot of people are team Ace Bailey. Some people, I saw on Twitter, they said if the Sixers draft Ace Bailey, they will no longer be a fan of the team. Same thing that goes for Trey Johnson if he's the selection at number 3 as well. Some polarizing prospects for sure, but you have the option of potentially trading back, acquiring, a veteran role player, and then still staying within this kind of top mix of draft picks and getting a player that could still help next year, but also can help going forward that fits the needs of what the 76ers roster needs, not just in 2025, 2026, but 2026 and beyond. After that, looking at this kind of next era, because you don't really know how much longer you're going to be able to rely on Joel Embiid. And while this move might be, more in the mix for what Daryl Morey needs right now and not the long-term, hopes of this franchise, because I think last year they kind of gave Nick Nurse and Daryl Morey a bit of a pass after, a slew of unlucky injuries, I think you can point it to, and just not being able to fully connect on the right page at any point throughout the season. That really led to a lot of, the losing and the frustration that came with the Philadelphia 76ers last season. But I do think they're on a much shorter leash this year, and Daryl Morey could be like, all right, one of these guys at number 3 isn't going to help us as much next year as we might need to potentially keep our job. He might look to trade back, move back, and acquire one of these high-level role players, and then still pick a player for the future there at whether it's number 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that mix most likely. So the 76ers continue to keep their options open, and I love that. I think that's a smart thing to do. I think that's a smart move to do. And you want to look at some of the teams that they could be in the mix of potentially trade back with the Sixers sitting there at 3. I don't think the Charlotte Hornets are necessarily jumping, from 4 to 3, but could Utah move up? Utah team with a bunch of draft assets. The Brooklyn Nets, as we know, so many draft assets from the acquisition or the trade of Mikal Bridges. They bring in 5 first-round picks in that one. Is New Orleans in love with a player like Ace Bailey potentially at 3? Is the Washington Wizards in love with, Trey Johnson and potentially fear that the Hornets or the Jazz might look to select him? There are a handful of teams here in the mix that the Philadelphia 76ers could look to move back for, and it's a lot of speculation right now, but the phone's open, and Daryl Morey's not going to hang up the phone call because I don't think that there's a prospect that this 76ers team necessarily is fully in love with. Maybe they are, and they're just doing a good job of sugarcoating it, and they think maybe, like, all right, just say, for example, like, they really love Con Knipple, and they feel like Con Knipple is that guy, and they don't feel that he's worthy to be picked at number 3. You have a team that like the Wizards, say for example, that's in love with Ace Bailey potentially, and Ace Bailey has to be their guy, and they have to go get him at number 3 to feel comfortable after, most likely Cooper Flag and Dylan Harper go off the board. At number 6 there, could Concanipple be, a better selection, but also the Sixers pick up an asset or pick up maybe a role player for next year's team. Just a kind of an example there, but I think keeping those options open is the prime focus of this draft, and having that phone open, having your text messages on until you're really on the clock there at 3, and laser focus, hyper focus on a particular player. So with the Sixers keeping these options open, I think that's the best case scenario. You want to look at some more of the players if they do decide to trade back. If they do trade back, I think Ace Bailey is a guy that somebody's going to want to trade up for it. But then you're looking at this next group of type of players where VJ Edgecombe, Concanipple, Malawach from Duke, Trey Johnson, and then Jeremiah Fears. I think that's kind of my crew, my group of guys that I would be, fairly confident in saying that the 76ers would consider trading back for and still feel comfortable getting. If you slide all the way down to, all right, Flag at 1, Harper at 2, and then you just say follow the board. 3 Ace Bailey, 4 Edgecombe, 5 Knipple, 6 Malawach, 7 Trey Johnson, and then I would probably move Jeremiah Fears above Derek Queen there and say 8's probably the lowest you're looking to go. That puts you at, the Brooklyn Nets there at number 8 being the lowest you're willing to go to make sure you get one of those 8 guys that you're potentially targeting. And now we don't know the 76ers draft board. We don't know the exact scenario. But when you're looking back at these players, I think that's kind of the group that makes sense where, all right, it's smart enough to move back. We can still get something intriguing. And then we are also still able to get a promising prospect to help for next year's team. A guy I really like that's not in this mix as well that I think would fit on the Sixers for next year and for going forward as well is Igor Demon, a guy that doesn't need to score the ball, but is a plus size guard and a really good playmaker, really good vision, and has shown some scoring upside. And I think at the beginning of the year looked really good, hit a bit of a lull in Big 12 play, but is a long-term, promising type of player to mix with a Jared McCain and mix with a Tyrese Maxey as that kind of long-term table setter. I think that could be in the mix as well. Do the 76ers love him? Who knows? But that's another player I would be very interested in his fit. But, I think a guy like Trey Johnson comes in and helps you from day one. I think Jeremiah Fears long-term could be, potentially the best guard in this draft. That's how high I am on his overall game. Malawach as maybe your long-term Embiid replacement, and you're able to slide back to 5 or 6 and still get him. Concanipple, I think, is one of the 3 or 4, most win now ready NBA players in this entire draft class. And if the 76ers want to go that route and acquire a guy that can do that, also go out there and get another role player, I think that could make sense as well. But the most important thing is having these options and keeping these options open. So I love that the 76ers are still rumored to this. I like how there's not reports coming out like, all right, it's Ace Bailey or nothing. Let's keep the phone lines open. Let's keep these plans and this dialogue open. And let's do what's best for not only the team for the next year in 2025 and 2026, but potentially for the future as well, and getting this team back to contending status year in and year out. But as always, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you laser focused on someone at number 3? Would trading back upset you? I know people are on the fence of kind of you might not pick at number 3 ever again potentially, and have a chance to get a guy this talented. Why would you move back for a less talented player and just to acquire a role player in the mix there and a future draft pick potentially? Some people sour on that idea. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm all aboard the idea of trading back. Will I be upset if they sit and pick there at 3? No, but if you're able to trade back, still get a player that you really like and some assets and a role player potentially to help you moving forward, I think that's the move and the play that Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse should kind of be, vying for and the goal to come out of this 2025 NBA draft. But as always, let me know what you think in the comments below. Please drop a like, a subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time here on Sixers Digest.